G'day, welcome to Exploring AI. In this episode, we are going to look at using GPT-4 for transcribing text from images of documents. I initially tried this several weeks ago before GPT-4's update. It was actually somewhat easier then because the various capabilities of GPT were split off into different sections. Now that these capabilities are combined, it requires more care to be taken when constructing prompts. If presented with an image of text, GPT tends to want to use optical character recognition, OCR, via a Python script, rather than using its vision capabilities. OCR is not particularly good, and when constructing a prompt, you need to tell GPT not to use it. Even then, it can sometimes ignore the instruction and go ahead with OCR. This is an important point to bear in mind. I asked GPT how it refers to its vision capability when it comes to transcribing text, and it describes it as manually transcribing a document. For the following tests, I will use 2 pages from the same book. Both were photographed using just the camera on my smartphone in good lighting. The first test will ask GPT to perform a straight transcription. The second test will ask it to transcribe the text and then reformat the information into a CSV file suitable for loading into a spreadsheet. Here are the 2 pages. They consist of a series of dates on the left and information on the right. The information contains names, roles, locations, and additional information. For the first test, I wrote the following prompt. I've told GPT to manually transcribe the text and to not use OCR. I've also asked it to include the dates and all the text. I found that if I did not specify this, then GPT would transcribe the text and miss out most of the dates. The prompt for the second test was slightly more complicated. It is necessary to specify exactly what the data is and what columns it needs to go in. I also had to make sure it understood what kinds of dates it might encounter. One of the important aspects is asking GPT to do only a few lines at a time. I found that transcribing and formatting the information would often time out if the entire page was attempted in one shot. Interestingly, this does not make the task more difficult because GPT remembers where it has scanned the image and will scan the next section and add the information to an array it has already constructed. When the page is finished, it then generates the end result from the complete array. Speaking of arrays, I also found it very helpful to give GPT a hint on how to construct the data structure to hold the information. If left to itself, half the time it would construct individual arrays which, due to the nature of the information, were not always of the same length. It would then get an error when attempting to construct the CSV file. Here I have told it to create one array which contains records, one for each line in the document. Here are the results of the first test. On the left is the original image, and on the right the transcription. I've highlighted the mistakes in yellow. Overall, it's done an excellent job. The second document is almost as good. The main problems seem to be with numbers, both mistranslations and also a seeming need to add circa before dates even when there wasn't such a thing in the original image. Another important point when constructing the prompt is to specify what you want in the CSV. Initially, I didn't do this, and it failed to add double quotes around every element. I then asked it to add the quotes, and, as you can see, it added lots of double quotes. I found it was best to start over, upload the image again, and provide the correct prompt. As I mentioned, it's important to get GPT to do things in small sections. If not, you just keep retrying and end up with this, or this, or even worse, this, which is clearly lacking most of the information. Here is the final version of the spreadsheet for the second test page. As with the straight transcriptions, it's very accurate. GPT has also placed the information in the correct columns. Once I worked out how to get GPT-4 to do what I wanted, I found that it performed extremely well on subsequent pages, and it saved a massive amount of time. As with OCR, one has to check the results, but the big win here is not only having the text transcribed, but also placed in the required format. I hope you found this information of use. If you try this, tell me how you get on in the comments section. Thanks for watching.